And like I said, from the jump, Colby Young, getting Colby Young back for Georgia in 2025 is just massive. I think he immediately becomes one of the go-to guys in Georgia's offense. It's not like this guy was a superstar or anything, and I think that's kind of how low the bar is with how low the 2024 receiver room set the bar. That it's just you just need to get some solid SEC caliber receivers to fill your roster, and that's what this team was supposed to have a year ago before Ra Thomas and Colby Young both. Thomas kicked off, but Young just suspended. But Colby Young he's that big body. You saw him with the red zone touchdown in the season opener against Clemson. When Carson Beck on that game, on the attempted game-winning drive, on the final drive of the Alabama game, when he threw one up to the end zone, he was throwing that up to Colby Young. I mean, he's a go-to guy in this offense. And so to get that guy who can go up and make contested catches, I think is huge. And then you look at the next guy, or the guy who maybe not the next guy, because I think the guy who I think is going to lead Georgia in receiving this year is the Texas A&M transfer, Noah Thomas. Like this dude, you talk about going up and making contested catches. This guy led A&M in receiving a year ago, 6'6", over 200 pounds. Like this guy is a jump ball guy and a contested guy, and I expect him to be a big time difference maker in Georgia's offense this year. Had 574 yards and 8 touchdowns a year ago, led Texas in receiving. You also brought in a branch from USC along with his brother, the safety transfer. And, Zachariah Branch, 47 for 503 is fine. I think there's some good Georgia receivers for the years that have had 47 for 503 type seasons. And you're like, yeah, that guy was a solid player. I don't know what Marcus Rosemy-Jack's Saints numbers were his last year in 2023, but I feel like it was something like that, right? But yeah, I mean that's a solid option at the receiver position. But it's just, I think it was what the expectations were after a freshman year where I think he averaged like 17 yards a catch or something like that. He only averages just over 10, has 1 touchdown as a sophomore. Rosemy-Jack Saint, honestly, significantly better than that in 2023. He had 34 for 535 and 4 touchdowns. So like 500-ish yards receiving, but 4 touchdowns compared to 1, and then also almost 16 yards a catch Rosemy-Jack Saint had in 2023. And so I think that was the surprising part, is because you saw Zachariah Branch play as a freshman, not even looking at the 5-star label, because I feel like a lot of people look at the 5-star ranking and they continue to call the guy a 5-star for 2 or 3 or 4 years, even though, he's a former 5-star. But if he's not that good in college, then let's just call him an average college wide receiver. So it's like the 5-star billing tends to, I mean, I guess it's a blessing and a curse. You get that hype with that 5-star, but you also, a solid receiver feels like a bust because he was a 5-star. So, it's just what you are versus the expectations. And I feel like after the expectations of his freshman year, where he shined at times, like what am I trying to say? His film just popped off the tape, right? Like he was that kind of guy that just jumped off at you. He moves different. He's a weapon in the return game. I thought this guy was going to be a superstar after seeing him play as a freshman, and he just didn't really do that as a sophomore. But, USC had their quarterback issues for basically the first time ever under a Lincoln Riley coach team. And, there's probably a lot of explanation for that. So the 1 touchdown is crazy. Like, how does a guy like that only score 1 touchdown in a season, played 12 games? But I think at the end of the day, being in a system like Georgia's, say what you want about Mike Bobo and the offensive coordinator or whatever as the offensive coordinator, but I think Zachariah Branch should be you. And you know what? People talk a lot of smack about Bobo running his screens. Like, this is the kind of guy you need for screens. This is a yak guy. And so I'll be curious to see how Georgia uses him. I think with Colby Young and Noah Thomas out wide, I think that really opens things up for Zachariah Branch. And then the next guy I'm going to mention, who I really expect to have a bounce back year this year, is Dylan Bell. And so I think Dylan Bell could be Georgia's Deebo Samuel. You've seen, and to the extent that he might legitimately play running back this year, because I mean, we have Nate Frazier in the backfield, but after Nate Frazier, there's just a lot of unproven guys, and Dylan Bell has looked good at times. I will say, if he's going to be playing running back, going to be getting carries, he's got to get a single digit. We got to get this guy a single digit. He came in number 86 getting carries. I know it was, who was it? Ty Montgomery, I want to say, for the Packers a few years back. I know it's happened. Guys wearing 80 numbers playing running back, but get Dylan Bell a single digit if he's going to be in the backfield. Give me that Swiss Army knife. But I just really like Dylan Bell's, just versatility. He had 9 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown last year. 43 catches for 466 yards and 4 touchdowns. I kind of expected him to emerge as the number one guy. Like, you saw the games, and I know Florida State was garbage. They were a shell of the team that they really had in 2023 when Georgia played them. But he balled out in that game, and I think one of the bigger games he balled out in was the Tennessee game. He had the passing touchdown and the receiving touchdown, right? And that one was at the one of Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken. Thought they'd give him I thought Kirby would do him a solid, give him a rushing touchdown so he'd get the trifecta, but didn't do that. But Dylan Bell, 43 for 466 and 4 touchdowns, like I said, last year. A solid season, but, Arian Smith gets all the hate for all the drops, but he was not alone. Dylan Bell had his share of drops. Dominic Lovett had his fair share of drops. I would say Arian Smith dropped more big plays, but, he also made more big plays than most of the receivers on Georgia's roster. Averaged 17 yards a catch last year. And so Arian Smith, for all his faults, that's a skill set that is going to have to be replaced for Georgia. And I'm curious to see who can be that guy that takes the top off the defense. Branch and Dylan Bell both kind of seem like good slot weapons. I don't know that they're true deep threats. So, I'm curious to see, who that guy is that emerges for Georgia in 2025. But I'm really excited to see how Georgia uses Dylan Bell in this system, because if he's not being asked to be the number one guy, which I kind of thought he was going to emerge as the number one guy after how 2023 ended. So, maybe that's still in him, but also maybe he's just a better third or fourth option in an offense, and he can be used in the run game, in the pass game, and just kind of to keep defenses honest. So I really like Dylan Bell. I'm thinking he bounces back in 2024, or in 2025, I should say. Then you had London Humphreys, and kind of like I was saying with Zachariah Branch, that expectations influence so much of how we feel about players. But London Humphreys, he was like one of the top 4 or 5 receivers in the transfer portal a year ago. And I think most people saw that as like, this is a guy who needs to come in and play immediately. And I think because of the dynamic, just what it is, the precedent, I guess, that's been established in the transfer portal. Yeah, I mean, it's understandable. A guy's a top 15 player in the transfer portal. You expect that guy to be an immediate impact guy. And so when London Humphreys wasn't an immediate impact guy, I mean, I guess he did make an impact immediately in the Clemson game, but, he only ended with, 15 catches for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns the whole season. Just didn't really do much in an offense that, frankly, this receiver room was the weak link, or was one of the weak links, I should say. But so I think for that reason, London Humphreys, people are kind of writing him off, or it feels like, to me at least, people are writing him off. But what you have to keep in mind is that that's a guy who played 1 year at Vanderbilt. And so Georgia was going out and getting a guy that had a lot of eligibility left. And maybe that's weighted in the portal. I don't know if it's like, oh, he's got 3 years left, so this is a better player in the portal. One year of this guy versus 3 years of this guy, kind of, how that weighs. Maybe that's part of the formula. I'm not sure. But, you saw him you saw him make one play against Georgia when he played for Vanderbilt back in 2023. So I think Georgia fans were excited, especially after losing Ladd McConkey. They needed to fill that Ladd McConkey role with a real industrious player, if you know what I mean. So I think London Humphreys, I haven't written off London Humphreys in terms of being an impact player on this Georgia offense. I think he's shown at times what he can do. And, I think as far as being a fifth, sixth option, you got to like the potential there in Georgia receiving room. And the next guy I think a lot of Georgia fans see and like the potential in is Nitro Tuggle. Maybe they just love the name Nitro Tuggle because what did he do last year? 3 catches for 34 yards. He really didn't do much of anything. No disrespect to Nitro Tuggle because I also am excited about Nitro Tuggle. I think he's a guy who could potentially, on his second year on campus, maybe this is the year he takes a step and he's a bigger part of that passing game. So I feel like Georgia has, just from what's, guys who have played college football, I think Georgia has a lot of options and a lot of good options. And you also, the other one who, the other freshman from a year ago who's coming back, who I kind of expect bigger things, and maybe another one of those kind of slot role kind of guys, is Sokovi White. I'd like to see Sokovi White and Nitro Tuggle both take that next step. Like right now, I mean, getting down to Sokovi White and Nitro Tuggle, I mean, that's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's our number 6 and number 7 receivers that I've named, and I haven't even gotten to the true freshmen yet. So I think with just those guys, Georgia should have an improved receiving room in 2025. And then you get Talon Taylor, the 5-star receiver out of Illinois. Like, this guy is big time, and it's been a while. I think George Pickens was the last 5-star receiver that Georgia landed. And so there's reason to be excited about Talon Taylor, as well as CJ Wiley, the 4-star out of Milton, Georgia. And so there's a lot of hype. Rusty Mansell hyped up for most Georgia fans, I think from Dogs HQ. Rusty Mansell is one of the guys I trust in Georgia football the most. And this guy hyped up CJ Wiley like he's one of the best wide receivers he's ever seen play high school football. So I'm not saying his ranking doesn't necessarily reflect that. I think he ended up being a top 100, maybe top 50 player. I think he's like a top 50 player in the country. I don't have the recruiting rankings right in front of me, but if either of those guys, Talon Taylor or CJ Wiley, are able to make an impact, you've got to think that this receiving group is going to be much improved from what it was a year ago. If they simply drop 12 passes this year, it would be an amazing improvement. Like if you just cut the drops in half, what would that be? What was it? 37, I want to say, is the number I've had in my head. If they have like 18, 19 drops, imagine how different Georgia's season is with 18 or 19 less drops a year ago. I mean, who knows what happens? Maybe as a touchdown the first play of the game against Alabama, and Carson Beck doesn't get into a funk and throw 3 picks and Georgia get down 28-0. Maybe that's a little different if Arian Smith catches a 75-yard touchdown the first play of the game. Or maybe the offense doesn't get off to a slow start versus Tennessee if Arian Smith catches a 45-yard deep ball the first play of the game against Tennessee. Like there were, and sound like I'm picking on Arian Smith. His were just the biggest because, he got open. That's the biggest thing. Arian Smith was an athlete and he got open a lot. You have to give credit where it's due. The guy was Georgia's best home run threat a year ago. So with all of that said, I think this Georgia receiving room will be significantly improved in 2025. And I think there's no telling how much that could do for Georgia's offense in 2025.